Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each Top 10 by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Ruben Pressler.
Oh, hi, how are you?
Then Aaron Campbell.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, everybody! New Year.
Happy 2018. Good riddance to 2017, if you ask me. You got jobs, but you guys all had a good time. But I guess I moved back to Vegas. I started being a dealer, but 2018 in general was just kind of a mess.
2017, you mean?
2017 was kind of a mess.
Because what I'm seeing here ain't a mess. Like 2018's looking good from your side of things. So
I am at my aunt and my uncle's house in Los Angeles, California right now, where they have non-potato internet. And I got my hair cut and my beard trimmed yesterday. Not a euphemism, because I'm going to be this weekend with Evan. You're welcome, everyone. And we're going to be on television this weekend at the Loading Ready Run pre-release, which is exciting.
Oh my God, it's going to be incredible.
That while Aaron is busy having a job and managing managing human beings while they're at a Grand Prix in Santa Clara. So
we'll be dividing and conquering. It's cool. You guys will be promoting there. I'll be promoting there. We'll just be serving in all over the country.
It'll just be everywhere. It'll be terrific. And Load, Ready, Run guys are amazing. And I've seen this for so long, and I get to be a part of it. And Ruben's going to be there, and there's probably some pies.
Yes, we're gonna have to remind me to go buy the pie products. Unless you're footing the bill on the pie products of the pan.
Okay.
I assume that we are paired against one another.
It would make sense that the pie thrower is the person who gets to pay
all
for
I ask is don't, too much force. Just don't break my nose, all right?
Wow.
This is the monster,
you know, I've got experience in this, right? You know, I have.
I suppose you've won a few pie bets in your time.
A non-zero amount of pie bets. Usually very low amount, but non-zero. All right, so we are here.
Dude. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, what?
I said my fate is in your hands, dude.
It certainly is. And look, you are the highest quality. If you're watching the actual show, Ruben's in the highest quality I have literally ever seen him in.
It's like this is a joke version of our show.
That's true.
Ruben is the one with the good internet and good hair and clean. Usually I'm pixelated and just covered in garbage, right?
Like Pigpen from Peanuts.
Absolutely.
Draped.
Pigpen from Peanuts, but now Pigpen from Peanuts got cleaned up a bit for the
You better call Ruben with the good hair.
Oh my God. We also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most prolific and let us know what card we didn't choose as one of our top 10 Gruul cards. Ruben?
Well, prolific is a good word for this, because the winner this week is Jeremy B., who wrote us a gosh darn novel. But the comment was so thorough and so good that we decided that it was going to be this week's winner. Jeremy B. wrote to us, I've been waiting with bated breath. Sorry, hold on. I've been waiting with bated breath on the Gruulest clan of them all, and y'all didn't disappoint. My only tiny gripe is the total lack of a certain man-boy who epitomizes all that is right and Gruul, Domri Raid. As the pint-sized planeswalker possessed the power to be a prominent presence, put forth those plosives, Ruben. In Standard, he fits one of Ruben's requirements by having a good tournament pedigree. He also encompasses the Gruul MO of fight first, -2, and ask questions later, +1. That I suppose Aaron is mildly familiar with. Please don't block me, I'm a big fan. Lastly, players like Aaron and myself, he, alongside with greats as Bruce Willis and Captain Picard, embodies the old adage of bald being beautiful. Seriously, though, I have fond memories of playing green and red cards and think Domri Raid was a fresh new take on what low CMC planeswalkers could do while making the mid-range monsters archetype more ponderous than the previous paradigm would have us believe. While I don't pretend to know where he should fit into the top 10 hierarchy, I just believe Domri was notable and impactful enough for a shout-out. As always, Magic Mike's, TM, continues to kill it with these lists, but I just wanted to say hello and remind your viewership, who was the OG in making anger great again? Yes, I went there. Sincerely, Jeremy B.
Wow. You're encouraging this, Ruben. You're encouraging this lengthening. You understand?
Look, I have to swing the pendulum back the other way one of these times. So if you have pithy comments, there's the plosives again. If you have some pithy comments for me, I'll put them in the future.
The pint-sized planeswalker possessed the power, the prominent present.
Well crafted.
Very nice. So, Jeremy B., thank you very much for contributing to the comment section of last week's video. Yeah, I will be in contact with you, and/or, in fact, get in contact with me would be great because it's a pretty busy week. Hit us up on the social medias. Pick your poison. You know, Twitter is preferred. We'll hook you up with a $50 gift certificate. Thanks to CoolStuffInc.com. Now we can get to the top 10 unstable
I'm left
cards.
to chill after that comment. Sorry.
You did this, Ruben. It's on you.
I only have myself to blame.
That's right. So, Ruben, for that, what is your number 10?
Well, before we get started, I got to get prepared for this episode. First of all, I need to block blurry beebles. So get ready for.
Okay.
I also might pick up a copy of Hazmat Suit Used. So I'm getting my gloves on to make sure I can handle those.
Come on, set design.
I'm not going to keep these on the whole episode. That would be absurd. But I thought I would start because I had a copy of Blurry Beeble and a copy of Hazmat Suit Used in a blue-black deck that I drafted of this set. And I had 2 copies of a powerful, powerful uncommon called Skull Saucer in that deck. And I spent a large portion of that draft with my head on the table. So, Skull Saucer is 4 colorless black for a zombie head creature. It's an uncommon. It's a 4/1 flyer. And when Skull Saucer enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and put your head on the table. Sacrifice Skull Saucer when your head stops touching the table. Flavor text: no body is ready for this kind of power. This card is legitimately bonkers. It's a dark hatchling. Like, it has 4 power and flying, and it dark banishes a creature when it enters the battlefield. It murders a creature. It's just any creature.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are the spikier among you, I also had a copy of Tales of My Death, or whatever that card was, that allowed me to bring back a Dastardly Doom watermark card, which Skull Saucer is. And Skull Saucer serves as its own uncounterable sacrifice outlet if you just lift your head off the table. So they can't ever take control of it with 5-finger discount or any of those kind of tricks. So you can just reanimate it at your leisure, which is sweet. Skull Saucer did tons of work for me over the course of that event, and I just think that it's a hilarious card and just wonderful.
How difficult was it for you to keep your head on the table? Like, how long were you able to keep that going?
You went mute.
I had to cough, and so then, in any case. So I placed my chin on the table like this, okay, and just slid around like this, and people kept trying to ask me questions, and so every time they would, I would slide toward.
Wow.
Yeah, the regular, game store plastic fold-out tables, and so my beard made a nice scritchy noise when it went all the way back and forth whenever I needed to turn to the side. It was delightful. Giving high fives for Gimme 5 was difficult from my chin down here and then up top. Other than dexterity issues, Skull Saucers.
Skull Saucer was one of my. It was on my short list, if only for power level. But just, I mean, sticking your head on a thing like. Obviously, the unsets like to really play around with a world that Magic can't touch. But like, there's a whole comedic element to your head is attached to the table.
It definitely. It definitely was a ton of fun. It's a unique card. It does something completely unique to Unstable. It's the only card where your head has to stay on the table, and obviously it's super powerful as well. And this is the kind of card I love to have in these sets.
Well, I would hope you wouldn't have, sort of like a multiples.
A cycle head on the
mechanic.
Table. Yeah. Yeah. I would.
Aaron, what is your number 10?
My number 10 comes with a story. I like to give you guys behind-the-scenes tea, a little bit of dirt as to what goes into the making of the show, things that you, the public, might not get to see. So when the word got out that Unstable was happening, we had gotten an email from Wizards. And if I understand the email correctly, if I remember it correctly, they basically wanted content creators to audition for the right to get to preview Unstable cards. They were very open about the fact that they didn't want the usual, like, you know how how preview articles usually go. It's like, here's a copy of the card, here's a paragraph, I hope you like the set. And it's whatever. We know it, we hate it, but we deal with it. And they were very clear about the fact they didn't want creators to do that. And so they kind of wanted us to pitch ways that we would preview unstable cards if we got the ability to do them. And I remember we got that email and we were like, like, we're not really, I don't know if we were busy or we just didn't care, but we didn't even go for it. We were like,
it's such an open-ended thing of like, you don't know what the preview cards are. So how do you even know what to pitch? It was it was difficult, but
and so we didn't even prepare. We didn't participate.
Well,
I think we kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that we just weren't going to get a preview card for that season. We were like, you know, there's some very witty creators out there. If they want to do this, God bless them. So imagine my surprise when Evan pinged us and let us know that we did in fact get a preview card for Unstable, and it is my number 10, By No Means, which is not a bad card. Like, I think this is constructed playable. It's an enchantment for 2 and a white. You can pay 1 and a white to remove a counter from a permanent you control to create a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token. You can also pay 1 and a colorless to sacrifice an artifact and choose any kind of counter a printed card refers to, and then put 1 of that counter on target permanent. And so there's lots of things you can do with this. Loyalty counters are a thing, suspend counters are a thing, poison counters are a thing. There's no shortage of ways that you can get some mileage out of this card. But like I said, this card was just a very happy surprise for me because I was not expecting anything for Unstable Season. And not only were we given a card, but we were given a very good card.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, had we known that this was going to be our preview card, I think we could have come up with something.
Oh, yeah.
Gnome related.
There could have been, like, you know, come up with something to do with goblins, something to do with squirrels, you know, I mean, like, just a little context because, you know, the restrictions breed the creativity. And when you're like, you know, offer us the world, and we're like, we don't know what you're talking about. Like, I mean, like,
we just didn't have a frame of reference. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, this card is super cool and it has a ton of implications. For example, when we talked about the blue-white cards, Guafa Hazid came up, and you notice that By No Means only says references the counter and put it on target permanent. So Guafa Hazid basically has haste in this case, where it references bribery counters. You can put it on your opponent's stuff. And there's lots of instances like that on various other types of cards. If you play like a Frankenstein's monster, you can put +2/+2 counters on stuff, for example. I mean, there's so many different types of counters out there that By No Means would take advantage of, and it's certainly an awesome card.
And if I understand the rules correctly, Ruben, so if you use the bribery counter, if you put a bribery counter on something with By No Means, you don't have to give them the card that you would normally do with Guafa Hazid, yeah?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's busted in half.
I mean,
wow.
I think I know what my commander deck is going to look like.
Guafa Hazid's ability says target a creature and then part of the ability, not part of the counter. Wow, that's busted in half.
I've been trying to build a Guafa Hazid deck, and
with By No Means legal in Commander until the 15th.
Shout out to bringing up a dark rare, by the way, a rare from the dark, by the way, which is Frankenstein's monster. I think some people were like, "Yeah, Frankenstein's monster, sure, whatever." No, there was a card.
Yeah, it's a card called Frankenstein's monster.
20 years ago. It's fine, whatever. Yeah. All right. So for my choice for number 10, you know, Wizards have been playing around a lot with keywords, what they can do with keywords and how they work and how they're. We've kind of grown accustomed to certain things being known for certain other things, like lifelink. And if you were thinking like, hey, if there's lifelink, what if there were other links? What if they're like you made squirrels when you hit people with things? And what if you put that on a squirrel that was like really cool and regal, and we made like a buy box promo for it because it was super sweet, and Earl of Squirrel is my number 10, 2 green, 4 generic mana for a 4/4 rare squirrel advisor. Squirrel link, damage dealt by this creature, also causes you to create that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Creature tokens you control are squirrels in addition to their other creature types, and other squirrels you control get +1/+1. So all your tokens are squirrels. You're making squirrels with him. He's squirreling it. It's very similar to kind of Wither, and this is something they mentioned, that Mark Rosewater mentioned in the article, is that, you know, Wither kind of replaced things. Well, this is a sort of a addition, essentially. It's like it deals damage, you know, and it causes you to create that many tokens. So you're still getting the best of both worlds, and ultimately it's super cool and flavorful, and he's got like that squirrel face of looking up like that, and it's amazing, and it's terrific. So this card is really fun for me.
One of the guys in my local commander pod is looking to build a squirrel deck, and he just asked us for permission the other day. We had the official "Can I play with silver cards" in our pod conversation, and we were like, "Well, what are you thinking of?" And he's like, "I want to do squirrels," and we were like, "Approved."
I bet it's like the 80s when they have that very special episode. Like he sat down and he was just like, "Hey guys," and like the piano starts in the background. He's like, "I want to ask you a question, and I don't know how to say this, and I really like and it just kind of goes from there."
Yeah, that's amazing. This card's amazing. Obviously, it's a 6-mana 4/4 that whenever it deals damage to anything, you get 8 power. So like that's kind of great. If we're actually casting this in a constructed format of some time, but. It's just the undisputed greatest keyword of all time, right? Like, there's just, if we were to do the top 10 keywords episode, I think I would put Squirrel Link at number 1, and then like Squirrel Touch, Squirrel Proof, into Squirrelable, Squirrelsmanship, Squirrel Effect, where damage dealt by this creature puts that many +1/+1
squirrels,
1/1 green squirrels on that creature, and you have to.
We have squirrel spend, where you put like counters on something, and when you
splice onto squirrels.
There you go.
Squirmple. I think we're done. But in any case, I could just do a whole top 10 episode about that. Yeah, it'd be great.
What would you want for Kamigawa? Soul Shift? You could do Squirrel Shift?
Squirrel Shift would be amazing.
Oh my god.
That'd be so good.
Trans Squirrel.
But yeah, this card's great. The alternate art is great. Hopefully, can we show both arts for this card? Sure. That would be great, because the traditionally painted Matt Cavada promo Squirrel, Earl of Squirrel, is a delight. Sorry, I just gave you more work to do, Evan. But,
yeah, thanks a lot, dude. God,
but it was
your thing lately.
I think that it was the Buy a Box promo for Unstable, and it is 1800s style, painted on canvas. Hanging over the mantelpiece style, and it is a delight as well.
It is wonderful. So we're going to move on here to number 9. And luckily, my number 9 is pretty straightforward. And it's cool because it's vanilla. And it's cool because it's the first vanilla mythic. And Rosewater was just like, what do you think? First vanilla mythic. Everyone's like, 9 mana 2020. Here we go. Up and up. And no one really got it, at least as far as I could tell. And then you see it, and it just kind of comes out of the void because it's infinite. Infinity Elemental has infinite power. It has power so infinite they bolded it. It is 3 red, 4 generic mana, a 7 mana, infinite power, 5 toughness. You know what? Sometimes you gotta have a butt, so it's not like infinite butt. This is the teenagers would say that this would be the card called your mom, but whatever. Infinite power. Infinite power is infinite, and I love it because the flavor text is it's so infinite that its flavor text is so infinite that its flavor text is it's so infinite that it's, so on and so forth. It's amazing. It's for a guy who is the Timmy Spike. Like, I need to see the thing that can never have a number to its power. It is so enormous.
Yeah. Shout out to MythicSpoiler.com, who continues the flavor text ad nauseum through the end of the page.
Oh my god.
They have hundreds and hundreds of lines of text that say it's so infinite that its flavor text says over and over and over and over again. Wow. Infinity Elemental is a delight. It is a interesting way to go about creating the first vanilla mythic, and I think that it's just awesome.
I think it really did its job well, and it's
absolutely
big and it's scary and it's dumb, and I love it.
Yep.
Aaron, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is the first of many cards that people, when you're, one of the things about sort of being, the Dredge Queen or the Reanimator Queen is it's sort of a branding thing where people see certain cards and they immediately think of you, and then they tag me in them, and they're like, this is an Aaron thing, this is totally a you thing, and this is one of many cards on this list that I've been tagged in, or that I was tagged in when the card came out because people thought it was unequivocally me. What's better than having one graveyard? Having everybody's graveyard. My number 9 is Graveyard Busybody. So Graveyard Busybody is 4 and 2 blue. She's a creature human spy with little asterisks. What's the plural for that? Asterisks. Okay, for the power and toughness. So she starts off by saying all graveyards are also your graveyards. Like, how cool is that? Like, in a commander game? Yes. And then she says Graveyard Busybody's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards with flavor text in your graveyards. And that's just so powerful. And I've had the opportunity to play with this in Unstable. I had this and another card on my list at the same time, which is higher up there, but it's so much fun. And if you're somebody who enjoys playing with graveyard strategies, you know, having more of that resource is a really great thing. I love the art that she's sort of this Mary Poppins almost looking character. You know, she's hanging around graveyards and trying to get some dirt there, or some intel. I like the flavor text as sort of a nod to The Walking Dead, which I really, really love. And this is just very much a me card. And the minute I saw this, I was like, I'm in love with this. And so I really like the way they continue to play with graveyards as a resource. And I think this is a neat way to do that by letting you play with everybody's.
The R&D test name for this being Aaron on brand. Gotta keep that. Gotta keep that brand. Gotta go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this land is your land. This land is my land. This graveyard is your graveyard. This graveyard is mine. Everyone's graveyard is my thing now. This was on my short list as well because it was so sweet, but also because on brand. I was pretty sure that Aaron was going to be able to talk about this one and how cool it is. All graveyards are also your graveyards. I love that sentence. I love that sentence so much.
It's great. It really, if you play this in Commander and you don't play it with Praetor's Council, boy, I don't know what you're doing with your life. You just return all cards from everybody's graveyard to your hand, and then you just have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. You just pick up a Commander deck, and it's your hand now. This card's great. Definitely on brand. And Busybody in a card name is delightful.
Oh, my God. So, Ruben, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is higher on somebody else's list. I don't have too many this time, though.
Well, that's good. I got a few hires because number 8 starts that list. That's my first hire, so I'll say, this. Aaron, let's do this.
So I kind of touched on this a little bit with my number 9, and one of the things I love about Unstable is obviously I love broken things, and I love the ability to play with zones or play with concepts that we don't normally get to play with. You know, so the idea of we obviously see graveyard things in sets, and you can reanimate things and you can eat things in graveyards, and that's a thing. But the idea of having all of the graveyards is a very novel concept. My number 8 also plays with a novel concept. Oh, that was a pun right there.
Wow.
I'm just going to cut to it. My number 8 is Animate Library. Book, novel. You're welcome. So Animate Library is 4 and 2 blue. It's an enchantment aura. You enchant your library. The idea that your library can do something other than just being something you draw from or something you shuffle or something you put into your graveyard. That's so awesome. Enchanted Library is an artifact creature on the battlefield with power and toughness each equal to the number of cards in it. It's still a library. Like, ugh. And then if Enchanted Library would leave the battlefield, you exile Animate Library instead. So it has this neat sort of totem Umbra kind of effect to it. If you kill it, you got a little bit of insurance there, and that your library is still fine. But how cool is that? You know, to take something that normally is just sort of, you know, whatever, and it's a thing, and you could beat someone with it. And the flavor text of sometimes the books hit back. I mean, that's so good, and just I love everything about this in a way that it plays with the concept of the library in a way that we haven't seen before.
This is one of I think the freshest kind of design takes of the set. Now, there's a lot they're doing with like silver borders and white borders and black borders, and that's cool, but they've already done things like reference, you know, set collector number and odd names and capital letters and whatever. Yeah. Animate Library is like, whoa. And this, along with Split Screen, which was very close to my list, is like, what would you do with libraries now that we're like messing with libraries? Like, you know, enchant your library sounds sweet. And it's like, if you would look, imagine a card that said enchant your library. If you would search your library for one land, you get 2 instead. Like, that is a legitimate, fine card that would work because it's just a replacement effect. So enchant your library is a type of card I want to see more in the future because I think the design is genius.
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting way to get around the Ivory Mask or Leyline of Sanctity effects if you want to try to like curse your opponent with if your opponent's library would get searched instead something else happens.
Yeah.
Animate Library is also a one-hit kill in this set. It's a 1-card win condition because usually you're attacking for 30 or at least 20 most of the time when you play this on whatever turn. So whenever you're playing against a blue deck, you always have to leave back a blocker every single time because like just in case they have Animate Library in their deck because
God forbid you're playing Commander.
Right. Jeez. Just get hit for 90. Yeah.
You gotta have just like move to stack.
Yep. Animate Library can block a Lord of Extinction profitably in Commander. That is saying something. Animate Library is super sweet.
Oh my god.
Love it.
Is your library tapped? I'm not sure. Is this the tap? Right. Is that the tap? Okay.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing like just sort of the visual of it of like tap my library.
It answers apparently you can attack with your library the turn you play Animate Library, which means that your library was on the battlefield.
Well,
which I didn't realize.
Sure. Okay.
I didn't figure that out. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Ruben, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is so I wanted to talk about a card that had the art of a person that I know personally, which is the first time I've ever been able to really say that, and also feature one of the key mechanics that's in Unstable. And so my number 8 is half kitten, half, and that's what the card is called. It's one of the augment host cards. This one's an augmentation. It is a creature cat and has the rules text, whenever you're dealt damage, comma, and has augment of 2 colorless and a white, which is the keyword that if you pay that mana and reveal it from your hand, you combine it with target host. Augment only as a sorcery, and the creature that it augments gets +1/+2. And this art is by Andrea Radek, who was a former co-worker of mine at StarCityGames.com. I think, Evan, you hired her, I think.
I did. She's a former employee.
Yeah, she has 8 cards in Unstable, all of which are augment host related, because she is amazing at drawing adorable things like adorable kitten, and some of the other cards that are in the set, like the half squirrel, half something else is another favorite of mine. Right. And she used to do a ton of playmats for Star City while I was there. Just a fabulously adorable art. Just a talented human, and I can't be more proud of her and her work here, and this one's a favorite.
It's amazing to see that, obviously to be involved with somebody early in their career, and to give them ideally opportunities to grow, but to see somebody who was like, I would kill to make a mat to illustrate a Magic card, and then they do, and it's just like, Andrea, you just. And then you did the thing, and I'm so proud I can handle it. And it's just like, it's awesome. So regardless of, not exactly, I wouldn't say which one she did per se, but like her entire set of things in the set itself is just fantastic.
Absolutely.
So way to go, Andrea. All right. So I don't have a number 8, but you did. That was nice. Let's go on here to number 7. I don't have a number 7. Ruben, do you have a number 7?
No. It's higher on somebody else's list.
Man. All right.
I got them all out of the way. That's it. That's it for me. The rest of mine are originals.
Okay. I mean, that's what you tell us. Sure.
Well, I mean, it's only fitting then that Original Estrus handles this. So it's, see what I mean there? It's my Twitter handle.
Yeah.
So my number 7 was a pack one, pick one in my second ever Unstable draft. I'm the kind of person where I'm not the best drafter in the world. I've been very vocal about that. And so sometimes when I see something that appears to be a combination of colors, and I think, hey, I can jam these colors, we're in there, fam. And so this was a pack one, pick one. This also plays with the way that we play the game. I love broken things. We talked about animating your library. We talked about having access to all graveyards. This card really plays with the idea of how you play the game, and specifically how you sequence your plays. We're very lucky in that everyday Magic, your hand can sort of be played in any order, anytime you want, and you're not really bound by anything. And this card really changes that. This card forces you to sort of think outside the box. My number 7 is the Grand Kalki-tron. So this is a white-blue legendary artifact, and when the Grand Kalki-tron enters the battlefield, each player's hand becomes a program, an ordered row of cards. So you have to literally, you play with this thing, and you have to assign a certain order, and you have to cast and do everything in that order. Players can only play the first card of their program. If a card to be put into a player's hand from anywhere, that player reveals it and places it anywhere within their program instead. At the beginning of each player's end step, if that player's program has fewer than 5 cards, he or she draws cards equal to the distance. And so this is a really difficult card to sort of deal with, because again, we're so used to, I'll just put my cards wherever and I'll just play them however I feel like. And with this, you have to be like, okay, so I drew a land. I don't really need the land right now. I'll make it my 3rd card in the program, and you got to play it in order. And that's so cool. And I really enjoyed seeing my opponents try to deal with it. It was challenging for myself to sort of sequence my plays. And I really, really enjoyed this. And then there were some rules questions as to what happens when you get rid of this, and then what happens to the program and the hand. And I really, really enjoyed this card, and I would totally do it again. And it just plays with the way that we do things, which I love.
They made it as cheap as possible, which is another thing that I appreciate when they're trying to do something weird and it's this color combination. Like, I want you to try it, so we're just going to make it really low costed. It's the silver set. Who cares if this is broken? But I've dealt with, and I've played with board games and or card games where this mechanic is enforced, where it's like,
this is Robo Rally.
Well, it's partly Robo Rally. There were some other games I've played. One involves trading beans, Bonanza. It's actually amazing. But either way, you can't change the order of your cards, and you have to play them in the same order, and that becomes a real sort of mini game in and of itself. So to be able to kind of bring that to Magic, and like you're drawing a card, and you're like, oh, where does it go in the program? I think that's amazing. That's terrific.
This allows for a interesting. It's like kind of a passive push for contraptions to be more relevant. Because the contraptions aren't constrained by the Grand Calcutron. This is a control deck, just a nightmare for control decks in Azorius colors of all things. And hilariously combos with Meddling Mage. You just name the first card in their program. It's not like Magic anymore.
And that's white blue that can go in Guafa Hazi. This is great.
There we go. We're building the deck. Found it.
Got there.
Yeah, this is quite the card. It's very entertaining. Just another home run.
And fills out our number 7 slot, because we're going to go to number 6, and guess what? Ain't got nothing. It's my last hire.
Jeez.
Ruben?
Well, I am done with mine, so I actually have a number 6.
Ooh.
And it's going to be our first contraption on the list. We're going to go back to that draft deck that had a copy of Blurry Beeble in it, and also had a copy of Hazmat Suit Used, because that deck featured a lot of creators of contraptions, and I really enjoyed the controlling element that you could put together with sort of a black-based or a blue-based or a white-based control deck that got, a little bit, it was sort of like drawing half of a card or drawing a third of a card every time you cast these extra spells. And one of the best ones that I drafted is called Thuds for Duds, which is actually a Goblin Explosioneers, one of their contraptions. But I found it super interesting. Whenever you crank Thuds for Duds, roll 2 6-sided dice. Thuds for Duds deals damage to target creature equal to the difference between those results. And I thought that this was interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, it's removal, it's repeatable removal, which is huge in my, the blue-black deck that I drafted, or any sort of controlling deck. Second, it allows you to roll 2 6-sided dice for when that's relevant in your Goblin Explosioneers decks that get, I think Paniac is a good example of a card that really benefits from a Thuds for Duds crank. And third of all, it just fits in with the flavor of what the Explosioneers are trying to do. Thuds for Duds, just a perfect name. Everything works out great. This was one of the best, even though I wasn't an Explosioneers deck, this was one of the best contraptions that I could hope to turn up.
I mean, for those at home, for what it's worth, it is Thud for Duds.
Oh, Thud for Duds.
Because,
sorry.
Hey man, I just look up the stuff. I'm just telling you.
Well, if you have 2 copies, then it's Thuds for Duds.
There you go. See, you get your thud, you make thuds. Special hug. Okay. But thud for hugs. Thud for hugs. Thud for Duds aside, I mean, I think the card itself seems terrific. Like, is your average is what, 3-4 damage essentially?
So it's, I don't know, I would need to get Frank Karsten on the phone, but
Frank,
you have a 1 in 6 shot of rolling any given number on any given dice. So the difference between those two results mechanic is super interesting.
It is interesting.
And the other thing that this does is it allows your effects like more or less to add additional damage to one of the dice. You don't have to choose both dice to be able to get the gap wider. And so Thud for Duds is quite malleable in that form.
So you were able to actually play with this, correct?
I was.
So what was your experience with it? How much damage were you doing?
Was that so I think I cranked this maybe 5 or 6 times throughout the tournament. And it was always, first of all, it was a sweat, which is awesome. Like, anytime you're like, oh man, I hope I get this one, right? Like, I need to get my out off this fact or fiction, and then you start flipping it. That's like the feeling you get with your Thuds for Duds. I was able to kill 1/1s and X2s pretty reliably. I did kill a 3/3 at one point, which was super important. I rolled a 2 and a 5 on that one, which was nice. I just think that, and then sometimes you miss. Sometimes you try to kill a 4 toughness creature, and then you roll 2 5s or whatever. Right. You try to kill a little creature, and then you just roll doubles, which is also unfortunate. I actually had a creature go to jail and a Thuds for Duds go off in the same turn. And I rolled the Thuds for Duds and got doubles, and then I rolled the go to jail and got a 1 and a 6, which I was like, man, if I just stepped different, I would have been okay. But yeah, I think that this card was great. It was great in my contraption deck. Highly recommend.
Super sweet. All right, Aaron, what is your number 6?
Meld was a mechanic that was introduced in Eldritch Moon, and it was one I was actually really excited about when it first got spoiled. You know, the idea of being able to take two things or two creatures or two halves of a creature and sort of put them together into these, you know, gross monstrosities of things. But one of the things that really disappointed me about Meld, number one, was that it was on so few cards. Like, we really didn't get many chances to do it. And the other thing I didn't really care for was the fact that it had to be just those cards. You know, you couldn't take something like Olivia and Snapcaster Mage and like jam them together. It had to be like Bruna and Gisela, and it felt very restrictive, and so I didn't really care for that mechanic too much. But my number 6 is changing all of that, in that you can sort of play with Meld, or something like Meld, the way that I always dreamed. My number 6 is Grusilda Monster Masher. So in addition to being a zombie villain, which really speaks to me personally, she's 3 red and a black. She's a legendary creature zombie villain, 4/4. Combined, enchanted, and equipped creatures you control have menace. And then for 3 red and a black, you can tap her and then put 2 target creature cards from your graveyards onto the battlefield, combined into 1 creature under your control. Their power and toughness is equal to their total power. Toughness is equal to the total toughness, and it has their names, mana cost, types, text boxes. This is what Meld should have been. Like, the ability to do something so creepy and so gruesome and just meld things together into gross new forms. Like, this really speaks to me. I love the possibilities, you know, what you can do with all of this. You know, I think this is really fascinating, and this is something that if they were to maybe do Meld again, I would hope that maybe they could play with it this way. And I just love it. I love that it's sort of a shout out to, you know, the song that we all love, the Monster Mash. This card is just a home run for me on a number of levels, and I look forward to, you know, just what I can do with this card.
He is a graveyard smasher, after all.
Yeah, and it's a neat way also to play with graveyards. You know, graveyards are sort of known for reanimating, or again, just sort of, you know, the things we know and love, and kind of like we talked about using your library in a very different way. It's like, you know, we're very used to casting spells from a graveyard, but it's very different to take things and then make them other things. That's very unique in graveyard things.
Well, I'd also note that it doesn't feel like a lot of this is like unprecedented. Like, you know, like if they put this in constructed Magic, you know, names are names and text boxes are text boxes, power plus, I mean, all that stuff makes sense.
Right.
And they've already done Fuse, which is very similar, and they were split cards, and you kind of combine them and people get it and they understand it. But, you know, for what it's worth, the ability itself seems reasonable.
Yeah. The ability itself is flavor text. I mean, honestly, if you took away the border and the watermark and the expansion symbol, and you compared this to, let's say, 100-Handed One, right, or Obsidian Fireheart, how much different is the flavor of this rules text from Magic cards that have been printed in standard legal expansions? I don't think it's that much different. The other thing I really like about this card is that you can stitch together both halves of the BFM from your graveyard, which I really appreciate. And so that's lovely.
That's awesome.
Do you have a favorite stitched together? This is like obviously what Jis and Geralf are hoping for. Obviously, they're all neighbors. Do you have a favorite combo that you want to stitch together in the future?
I don't. I think it's just the possibility that sort of excites me, you know, just being able to, you know, I can't even fathom like what could be good, but I'd love to see people's ideas. You know, if you're in the YouTube comments and you've used this card, let me know what you put together. I'm open to, I love commanders. So if you have an affordable Grusilda list, post it and tell me what I should be merging or melding. I'm happy for all suggestions.
The lead designer of Dragon's Maze, Alexis Jansen, had been talking a lot about, and this was way back in the day, about, you know, if there was a way to put creatures together and you put a little paper clip and they're like 2 creatures put together and this, you know, and so this is kind of, I think, you know, this is ultimately what that is. It's like you could paper clip them if you want to, but you don't got to. You just kind of stick them together, and that's it. And they're both the same thing, and that's great.
Yeah.
So let's see here. We got to move on to number 5. We are halfway done. Ruben, do you have a number 5?
I do, and number 5 has actually been in a lot of episodes of Magic Mike's in the past, so I'll let it read you what it does. Entirely Normal Armchair is my number 5. During your turn, if Entirely Normal Armchair is in your hand, you may hide it on the battlefield. Pay 0 and return Entirely Normal Armchair to its owner's hand. Sorry, I'm off screen, so I can't even read it. Only any opponent may activate this ability, and only if he or she sees Entirely Normal Armchair. Pay 2 mana and sacrifice Entirely Normal Armchair. Destroy target attacking creature. This card's amazing. It's a callback to Cheaty Face from Unhinged, which was also fabulous. And this is also tickling my D&D funny bone, because this is a mimic. One of the most famous monsters in Dungeons & Dragons lore. Most mimics look like treasure chests, although they can take any form. They can look like doors, they can look like bookshelves, or entirely normal armchairs. I had an entirely normal armchair played against me underneath the first land drop of the game, which was delightful, and got by it, which was awesome. And then for the rest of the game, I was like really paranoid about it, so I just kept searching all the lands. There's some great ways to put entirely normal armchair into play. My favorite one, I think, is to pay 3 mana and play it face down as a morph.
Oh my god.
Which I love.
That's amazing.
I think that's delightful. I think that it's just a really cool card. And also, it lets you, the opponents, have some play too. Like if you're like, all right, I see that entirely normal armchair, and then wait until the opportune moment to return it to your opponent's hand, of like, enter my combat step. I see your armchair over there. And then attack with your Infinity Elemental or whatever. So yeah, entirely normal armchair hits all the buttons for me, and I think it's great.
This feels like the Cheaty Face that doesn't cause people to want to hit people in the face.
Yeah.
Because the Cheaty Face itself, people would make multiple copies of it, or they would have like a proxy deck and they would turn them around and they'd all be Cheaty Faces. And it caused a lot of weird animosity in ways that I think entirely normal armchair is just hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the best ones I saw was someone made a playmat for the pre-release. It was just a bunch of entirely normal armchairs as a playmat, which was amazing. Yeah, just you had to pay super close attention to their actual playmat made entirely of entirely normal armchairs, which is amazing.
That is incredible. And like if you can lay one down just the right way, so it's laid down perfectly, unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I mean this is the kind of card that stories revolve around. Of where was it hidden? How did it get there? It's just perfect.
Oh my god. Aaron, what is your number 5?
Ruben, you can come out now.
I'm
all right. Ruben, come back.
I didn't know if this was going to be the rest of the show.
Nope, you had a new co-host. He'd already done Grand Prix coverage as MT Chair.
Ruben Breast Chair. Wow. I love it.
Right.
You can destroy anything in this game. Ancient Grudge, Shatterstorm, they destroy artifacts, Creeping Corrosion. Armageddon destroys lands. Johnny Vengeance destroys lands. Beast Within can destroy any non-creature permanent. If there's anything in this game, there's a safe bet you can destroy it, with the exception of like Planeswalker emblems and with the exception of energy counters and things of that nature. Unglued gave us a new way to destroy something. It gave us the ability to destroy players. My number 5 is Baron Von Count. So Baron Von Count is 1, a black and a red. He's a 3/3 legendary creature, human villain. I love villains, what can I say? And Baron Von Count enters the battlefield with a doom counter on 5. Whenever you cast a spell with the indicated numeral in its mana cost, text box, power, or toughness, move the doom counter 1 numeral to the left. When the doom counter moves from 1, destroy target player and put that doom counter on 5. This is something we've never seen before. We certainly have unique ways to say that we've won a game. We say that I killed somebody, got there, whatever, but we've never really had this be on the lexicon before, and this card has really changed that. And I love the story. I think it was Morrow who had wanted to use that wording for a long time, and people wouldn't let him, and then he finally got around to getting his wish. And so I love when Morrow eventually gets what he wants. I just love that there's a stable of people that are like, and then his ideas are really cool. I love that this is a thing now that you can say, I destroyed a player. I think that's really cool.
There's so many Rosewater stories that begin with, I had this crazy idea, they said it was too crazy, I don't know, test of strength, and then all of a sudden it's a mechanic in the game. This was my number 7, by the way. Baron Von Count first kind of gives me that kind of, 5, 4, to count himself from Sesame Street. But the idea that you have a little counter that moves down, the idea that you can kind of really, I think you can really ham it up with Baron Von Count.
Oh, the decks are great.
Absolutely.
If you ever have a minute, one of my favorite resources to find Commander decks is tappedout.com or .net. And just seeing all the lists people have come up with and the obscure cards that people are considering simply because they are of certain mana costs. And you got to make sure you got your 1s, your 2s, your 3s, whatever. Seeing the ways that people are justifying, this is a sweet little 3 cost that no one's using. And I love that. And there are some really great ideas out there.
Yeah. I mean, how different is Destroy Target Player from what Door to Nothingness does, for example?
Yeah.
Destroy Target Player is just so clean. It's shocking that it hasn't been on a card before. I love it.
Oh, man.
It's just so nasty, too. It's like Door is so, like, you know, dare I say, you know, comfy or soft. It's like, you know, you lose the game. It's like, no, I destroy you.
Yep.
You splatter like the Doom guys, like the Ghibli chunks, like the... You go places, okay?
I've kicked some people out the door, but I've yet to destroy Target Player, so I need to add that one to my Magic resume.
Live the dream.
So, one of the most epic moments in the pre-release for Unstable was, and I think this was Wedge, and he was playing Mark Rosewater, and he played The Countdown Is at 1. And that begins a sub game, and this is not the card I picked, but this sets up the card. For the Countdown Is at 1 is 2 red, 3 generic mana for a rare sorcerer that says players play a Magic sub game starting at 1 life and using their libraries as their decks for the rest of the main game. If a source would deal damage to a player who didn't win the sub game, it deals double that damage to that player instead. And that's cool, but it's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that they played that card, they resolved that card, they began their sub game, and Rosewater drew his opening hand, and in it was a Masterful Ninja.
Yes.
Masterful Ninja is a black and 2 generic mana for
He was in
rare...
the interview with Totally Normal Armchair also earlier. He was in the background. You didn't see him though.
He was right there.
He was right there the whole time.
It is a rare...
He's still here in front of me.
Creature type Troll Ninja. That's how good. It is a 1/1 with haste, and it says reveal Masterful Ninja from your hand. Masterful Ninja is on the battlefield and in your hand until end of turn. Black and a generic mana colon. Masterful Ninja gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So you started this sub game. You drew your 7 cards. You showed your Masterful Ninja, which is now in both places. It has haste, and you just won the game right there. That's how it works.
Yeah, I think that this Graham against Morrow. I forget what it was.
It might have been Graham.
I think Graham played The Countdown Is at 1, and Morrow was just like, so I win the sub game. And so that was delightful.
That was
this
insane.
is a really interesting design and ask some interesting unrules questions about what happens when it dies. Do you discard it, or does it die? Like, I don't know how that works. I mean, there's some really weird things going on rules-wise with Masterful Ninja, but the fact that the art is just a room.
Hey, if you've not found him yet, you're not looking hard enough, okay?
That's true.
It's
and
there.
The fact that his creature type has troll in it. I mean, this set is so full of home runs. It's tough to pick a top 10, and this is just another great example.
I remember, so I mentioned on our live show that my first taste of Unstable was when I was intoxicated, and that I didn't understand contraptions. I had no idea what was going on with the variant arts and things like that. And I remember being so upset over the clock stops at 1, or that sub game. I didn't understand it, and people were trying to explain it to intoxicated me. And finally, I just scooped. I was like, I don't understand this. Yeah. And so every time I hear that card or I see that card, I get it now that I'm sober. But at the time, it was very confusing. And rather than try to understand it, right, and at the time I was like, I'm just going to bed, and people are like, you're scooping? I'm like, yes, I'm scooping.
I think that's the only other card that makes sub games. Is that correct?
There's Enter the Dungeon.
Enter the Dungeon.
Glued, I believe, where you have to play a sub game under the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the next unrelease where they get Share Harazad, where you sort of
Gonna do that.
Fabulous. I'll enter that one in the unchallenge when I get in the Great Designer Search in a couple months.
Yes.
Share Harazad. But yeah, this card's great. Masterful Ninja is a masterful work from Wizards of the Coast.
It's terrific. Number 4. Ruben, what you got?
Evan, I love burn spells. I love burn spells, and I love pie, and I love pie bets, and I love pie. And when you combine the two, you get just not a clean, it's actually a little messy, but you get a nice removal spell in Just Desserts. Colorless and red, instant common, Just Desserts deals pie damage to target creature. Pi is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. It's a smidgen more than 3 as its reminder text. It's time to put the die in diameter. Flaky, the irrational. It's about 22/7, but as most Mark Rosewater said, they didn't put any cards with fractions in Unstable because this is an irrational number. It's right around 3.14159265358 979-3238-4622-288-41-971. How far should I go?
AKA a smidgen?
Smidgen more than 3.
Smidgen more than 3. Nothing like dealing pie damage. A construct of a human variety into a very mechanical, needs numbers game.
I'll be taking pie damage at the Rivals of Ixalan pre-release pretty soon.
Yeah.
At the hands of Erwin.
Oh, get you.
Nice.
So just desserts it is. Aaron, what is your number 4?
Well, now it's my turn for the higher streak. My number 4 is higher on somebody else's list.
Ooh, all right. Well, that's fun. Well, my next one here is an incredible card for a lot of reasons. It's also one of the first cards, like, I'm just, like, when I first read it, I was just howling. Like, I was just howling in laughter in the office, just like, I just can't. Well, my number 4 is Rules Lawyer. Rules Lawyer is 2 white, 3 generic mana for a 1/1 rare cyborg advisor artifact creature. State-based actions don't apply to you or other permanents you control. That means you don't lose the game due to having 0 less life or drawn from an empty library. Your creatures aren't destroyed due to damage or death touch, and aren't put in the graveyard due to having 0 or less toughness. Your planeswalkers aren't put into a graveyard if they have 0 loyalty. You don't get to put a legendary permanent into a graveyard if you control 2 of the same name. Counters aren't removed from your permanents due to game rules. Permanents or you control are attached or combined illegally remain on the battlefield. Complete rules and regulations. See Rule 704. That's what it is. And they made a Judge promo of it.
Oh, that's the icing on the cake. This was my number 9, by the way.
Nice.
This card is stone unbeatable, by the way. In case you had any worry, you don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. What? Excuse me? A baking powder? Your creatures don't die from lethal damage. This is a good example of why, like if you have the old rampaging Ferocidon rules question. If you Dark Nourishment a rampaging Ferocidon, you don't gain the life. But if you have destroy target creature gain 2 life, you do gain the life because the Ferocidon's effect is still happening based on state-based actions of the damage having not killed the dinosaur yet. Did everyone follow what I just did? If you haven't, see Rule 704. Rules Lawyer is it's amazing. It's a 5-mana 1/1, so it's not that tough to deal with. But if you're like a green-white host augment deck that has like a copy of Go to Jail, you're kind of stone dead to this card. Your creatures never die in combat. This card's amazing.
Yeah, this card's absolutely... And it's like the little text box full of all the little tiny words. My only wish, and we talked about this before, my only wish is if they made the Judge promo textless. That would
be fabulous.
Yeah, that would have been...
I really like that... I don't know if all of the uncards are like this, but there are no rules clarifications on the Gatherer page for Rules Lawyer, which is amazing.
Look, all you gotta do is see 704, okay?
Yeah, all you have to... By the way, have you ever seen a Magic the Gathering rulebook? I'm not sure I've ever seen one in real life.
Just
like a official
Actual.
rules to the game. Like I used to own a soccer when I was doing soccer refereeing. I used to have a copy of the rulebook in my bag. I've never seen a player bring just a copy of the rules to a tournament.
No.
Well, I'm an old man, and I recall seeing people bringing 4th edition rulebooks to F&M. Not that they use them.
It came in like the 5th edition
little
pre-con.
tiny ones.
Not pre-con. Yeah, but not like a printed, like hardbound,
right?
Dust on the cover.
No. That doesn't really exist. But we're going to move on here to number 3. Aaron, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is also on somebody else's list.
Higher, you say?
Yeah.
In our countdowns, and Aaron's got him in the higher bracket, which means he's probably more in touch with us than we are with her.
Oh boy,
that's an interesting way to say
field day.
That's a strange way. Okay. With that said, we'll move on here to my number 3, which is kind of a card that is built out of... Sometimes the community gets obsessed with things, and you've seen this with older unsets, with like Mize or whatever, where they kind of took something that was really just from the community, just from the players themselves, and they kind of just, they just turned it up to 11. They made it ridiculous. They showed you how ridiculously insane things can get, because Crowstorm is ridiculously insane. Crowstorm is easily one of the most exciting cards, I think, from the set for a whole lot of reasons, because first of all, it's silly. But it is a blue and 2 generic mana for an uncommon sorcery. Create a 1/2 blue bird creature token with flying named Stormcrow. Storm. When you cast this spell, you copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. This card is so broken. I can't broken your brokenness right now. If Empty the Warrens was in any way sort of kind of fair, this is sort of kind of insane. And it's not just that. It's fun because apparently they had a bunch of designers like submit this very card over and over and over again because Crowstorm is perfect.
I thought that every single designer submitted this exact card like at this casting cost.
Oh my god.
It's my number 4. Yeah, nice. And I mean, the thing that makes it, I think, so is scary is that, like you said, it's totally viable. You could, in theory, cast this and win with a bunch of of crows. Like, it's entirely possible. And it's just it's a shout out to something the community loves. The art is fantastic. You know, the flavor of there literally being a bunch of crows. It's very much like the birds. Oh yeah, this is a home run.
Storm crow lonely, boon for a birder. Storm crows together, likely a murder.
Yes. Oh.
Yes, that was delicious. Ruben, what's your number 3?
My number 3 was one of the promos for HasCon, in addition to Grimlock Ferocious King, which was the Transformers-related one that I think is the most expensive commander now that they're legal in Commander. Nice. They're like $200 a piece because you could play Grimlock as your general, and then you've also got Nerf War, which is the Nerf-themed sorcery that was the HasCon promo. And my last one is Sword of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
3 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from rogues and from clerics. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a 4/4 gold dragon creature token with flying and roll a d20. If you roll a 20, repeat this process. Equip 2. This is just fanciful enough, barely fanciful enough to pass as a fake card, right? Like, we're real close to playability with this card.
Yeah.
It references 2 creature types that are seen in real Magic the Gathering, like actual tournaments. Everyone has a d20. You're pretty much given a spin down in a lot of pre-releases. You should probably roll a random 20. I don't let my players, when I'm DMing, roll a spin down as their d20 for initiative and ability check. Makes a gold dragon token. We've seen 4/4 dragon tokens in the past. Not necessarily gold. And also, by the way, this isn't gold as in multicolored. This is gold as in that's the color that it is, right? So the rules there are kind of interesting. It does theoretically make a 6th color, so that's kind of interesting. And if you roll a d20, there's I forget the name of the enchantment, but there's an enchantment in this set that says whenever you roll a die, put that many counters on this, and then when you have 100, you win the game. Rolling d20s gets you there real quick. You just put 19 counters on stuff. Unless you have improved critical, and then it's a natural 20. That's a D&D joke. So this follows in the line of Sword of Fire and Ice and Sword of Light and Shadow and all of the original sword cycle, costing 3, being a mythic, and equipping for 2. It has the gold dragon, which is a good dragon, by the way. That's why he fights on your team. The art is a home run. It's got the mace. It's got the D20 on the handle. It's got the ampersand symbol that Dungeons and Dragons is famous for. It's just great all the way around.
I'm pretty sure that, and this is just my experience with literally every sword that Wizards has ever printed, if this were anywhere close to constructed actual black border, it would 100% see play.
Probably. I mean, so Sword of Dungeons & Dragons is certainly the worst of the 6 swords, right?
Fair.
You have protection from rogues and clerics instead of colors, right? That's weird.
Sure.
And then 5% of the time, you make a 4/4, which is good. But
no, 100% of the time you make a 4/4, and then 5% of the time you make 2 4/4s.
Okay, I'm stupid. So 1 out of 400 times you get 2 4/4s, which is great. And then every time it hits, you get a 4/4 instead of the 2 abilities. So this is certainly the worst of them, but it's the best of them.
Right. If a thing hits you and makes a 4/4 dragon, flying token, like it could be protection from donuts and coffee. I don't care. Like.
Because it's gold and none of the 5 colors. First of all, protection from donuts and coffee is a delightful ability, and I hope the next sort of bed and breakfast is going to be the next one.
Yes.
Donuts and coffee.
Brilliant.
Being a gold dragon, being that color, means that it can block any creature that has a sword on it.
Nice.
Because it's not red, blue, white, black, or green. That's adorable. I didn't realize that.
All right, so let's move on here to number 2. Aaron, what's your number 2?
My number 2, my number 2 and my number 1 are unequivocally me. I touched on the fact that there are just certain cards that people tag me in. They see them and they think this is an Aaron Campbell card. And my number 2 is a win on a number of fronts. Zombies have been popular for a while, and this card really just encompasses what it means to be a zombie. My number 2 is extremely slow zombie. So it's 1 and a black. It's a creature type zombie, 3/3 with last strike. This creature deals combat damage after creatures without last strike. So it's telling you, zombies are very slow, so you imagine somebody hitting it and it waits for you to hit it before it gets to do something. And then this is emphasized in the flavor text. There are 4 versions of this card with the different seasons. There's a spring, summer, winter, and fall, and the flavor text is brains, but the brains is stretched out across the 4 cards, and you can put them together. So there's the BR, there's the AI, there's the IN, and then there's the NS, and that's how they sort of go together. The artist also has released prints of this, which I was waiting to see if anybody got me them for Christmas, and nobody did, so I'll get them myself. It's totally fine. But you see it in the snow and you see it in the fall, and it's that slow that it takes 4 seasons to move and to say brains. And so this just sums up everything it means to be a zombie, and I love it, and I think it's great and fun, and it's just awesome.
They keep saying they can't bring Last Strike into real Magic, and I'm like, but it's so cool.
Another good one is if you double cleave or give extremely slow zombie double strike in some way, it gains triple strike.
Exactly, right?
Because it goes first, second, and last, which is
so
hilarious.
Good. I love it.
It is spectacular. This was also the first one that we saw that had the 4 arts. There are a couple of cards like Beast in Show and Extremely Slow Zombie that people, when they were first spoiled, were like, that's not really I'm not really sure I'm okay with a vanilla kind of creature in my unsets. And then they're like, hold on a minute, we got those 4 arts and 4 different flavor texts and slightly different rules texts on things like Sly Spy. This is just a great example of what you can do with an unset that's a little bit weird in a way that's a little bit weird, instead of just being weird in the way that we expect. The other thing that this reminded me of, I'm a big fan of old television and film, and for my money, the funniest scene in the history of television occurred on the TV show Taxi, where the gang was all taking a driver's exam that they had to re-up their licenses as a taxi, and the Reverend Jim, played by Christopher Lloyd, who was a bit of a space case. He was a bit of a space cadet, and he leans over to Tony Danza and he says, "Hey, what does a yellow light mean?" And Tony Danza leans back and says, "Slow down." And Christopher Lloyd goes, "Okay, what does a yellow light mean?" And the whole cast is like, they're on the verge of breaking Jimmy Fallon style for the whole time that Christopher Lloyd is pulling this stunt off, and it is hilarious, and that's what reminded me of Extremely Slow Zombie.
Wow. Well, if you want to look at different text boxes, if you want to look at text boxes that do so many different things, there's a joke in Magic, if you didn't know, that no one really knows exactly what Cryptic Command does. Everyone has an idea of exactly what 4 things it does, but you usually kind of mess up some part of it in some way. Target player draws a card versus just draw a card. Target opponents versus all opponents, creatures, whatever. Well, when they gave us Very Cryptic Command, we didn't know that there were going to be different versions of anything. That didn't show up till like 3-4 days before the set came out.
Yep.
6, yeah?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
It was days. It was just days before the set come out, and it caused some. I don't know if I would say it was a panic. I would say very concerned amount of people.
Yeah.
In card shops all over the world, going like, "Oh my God, how are we supposed to keep track of these if their text boxes keep changing?" Very Cryptic Command has 6 different versions. I really, if I read every single one of them, it would take a while. So I'm just going to read the one that has Wayne England art because it's my favorite. Sure. This version of Very Cryptic Command, as they all are, is 3 blue and 1 generic mana for an instant where you choose 2 abilities. And all these abilities are whatever. This one in particular, you switch target creature's power and toughness to end of turn. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Draw a card. If that card's art is by Wayne England, you may reveal it and draw another card, which is amazing. Yeah. Or lastly, assemble a contraption. So It does a bunch of really cool, interesting things, and also there's 5 other versions that do totally different things.
Yep.
And that's what we're doing here.
I think that this was the first time we saw that there were multiple cards with the same name. And this was a perfect introduction to it. I mean, you know, seeing all the extremely slow zombies is great. Seeing all of the amateur auteurs is great. But this was something special because people were like, what is – I mean, my brain was having a hard time wrapping around what the first one did, right? It was just already kind of difficult to figure out what's going on with Very Cryptic Command. And now there's 6 versions that I have to play around. It also caused that huge panic, as you mentioned, among dealers and stores about like all these cards have the same name now. How do we keep track of them? We used to do it by collector's number, but we can't do that anymore. And especially for Very Cryptic Command, where the Wayne England ones, especially the foils, are going to be highly sought after specifically. So yeah, definitely a little bit of a weird thing for the community to freak out over. Oh no, what do we do with the singles of the unset? Which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, Very Cryptic Command is a hilarious take on a joke. I get the reference, and everybody funny. Now you funny too, and it's just a great card.
Yeah, I remember this being the card that inspired the announcements from the vendors of this is what we're going to do. Because before that point, and I think even leading up to it, they were like, okay, fine, we have 4 versions of whatever, that's cute, but it was really this card that was like, we need to make a statement. This was the card that people, I think even Star City was like, this is how we're going to address this. Because before then, I think people thought, we'll just deal with it as it comes. And then this card came along and I was like, we need to be clear about this.
Yeah, basically the way that, and Cool Stuff Inc. treated it very similarly to basically all the other shops, which was the version that you saw when you purchased the card is the version that you got. And these are unstable singles, so like just spoiler alert, uncards don't sell that great anyway. Packs absolutely, because they have lands in them. Singles themselves not so much. But the fact that you have a card with literally the exact same everything except the text box is freaky, because I remember sitting in these meetings with programmers and them saying like, well, the number one thing is that the name is always different. Your name is always going to have something unique in there, or the collector number is going to be something A versus B or C. None of this happens here. So Wizards had to come out and say, this is A, this is B, this is C, so on and so forth. And that was helpful. That said, Ruben, what's your number 2?
So my number 2 comes with a question that I have to ask you. Do you like squirrels?
Yeah.
No.
I like squirrels.
Well, if I had asked Evan, I would get an additional 1/1 squirrel token, because my number 2 is Squirrel Dealer. Erin, I get no extra squirrels from Erin because she's a party pooper.
Imagine that.
But I wouldn't have asked. I would have very carefully found someone else. I would have texted somebody, hey, you up? Do you like squirrels? Squirrel Dealer is a 1/1 for a green mana. It is a raccoon lizard bird. Let me say that one again real quick. It's a raccoon lizard bird. When Squirrel Dealer enters the battlefield, ask a person outside the game, do you like squirrels? If he or she does, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. You see that sheen on the fur, the glint in their eyes? Top quality. These are the real deal. I really wish that I could ask people, hey kid, do you want to buy some squirrels? Because I think that would be hilarious. But this thing, it was very nice of them to put me on a card, basically. This is my what I look like in real life. I mean, this is all makeup, is what this is. This is CGI special effects. I actually look like this is my human suit. I'm actually a raccoon lizard bird in a trench coat.
6 raccoon. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. The art is just spectacular. This is one of the first arts spoiled from the set too. Yeah. It's got that Zootopia vibe where it's an animal in like weird film noir clothing, which is awesome. The street lamp in the background providing that perfect backlit Hitchcock vibe with the squirrels in the trench coat. I mean, come on. This card is perfect. Everyone at my pre-release knew. I didn't play any, but everyone knew that I was the guy to go to for the Do You Like Squirrels?
You always like squirrels. Of course, I mean, Aaron, busy blocking Bob Ross magic. It's fine. Right. Squirrels, no squirrels. No
bones about the fact that I am on the verge of livid that there aren't squirrels in Constructed Magic the Gathering right now. I mean, if you're going to have Deranged Hermit, if you're going to have Nut Collector hanging out, you got to have squirrels in Constructed Magic.
Nut Collector hanging out, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Move on here. That's for you, Aaron. Move on here to number 1. Aaron, what is your number 1?
Make no bones about it. There could be no other card that is my number 1 than this one. I mentioned throughout the show that people love to tag me in things, specifically things that have to do with dead things or reanimation. And this is something that even WotC's staff tagged me in. I was getting tweets from on high that were like, "Hey, you're welcome." This is the future liberals want. I had somebody give me a foil version of this card that they opened because they said it reminded them of me. My number 1 is Over My Dead Bodies.
Nice.
This is 4 colorless and 2 black. It's an enchantment. Creature cards in graveyards can attack and block as though they were on the battlefield.
Wow.
Hold her. Keep going.
Yeah.
There's more. And can block or be blocked only by creature cards in graveyards.
Wow.
Aaron, please.
I'm not even done. Are zombies in addition to their other types and have undeath touch. I didn't even catch that when I first read the card. I was so hyped by the card, it took me a second to realize it was undeath touch. If they would deal damage to a creature card, exile that creature instead.
Wow.
And just in case there wasn't enough, creature cards in your graveyard have haste. I mean, this is everything I want to be doing in life. If graveyard busybody means that all graveyards are yours, I mean, it's just I can't. Like,
graveyards are yours. Now they're all creatures. They're going to destroy you. Undeath touch shows up just out of nowhere.
Oh, God. The art is fantastic. You just literally have this soldier holding their head and the head is yelling at you and some sort of battle cry, and there's just this pile of dead things. And oh my God, I had Aaron from Organized Play tag me in this and was like, you're welcome. And other people, my notifications were just a mess. I'm like, Aaron, and I was like, I was just rocking back and forth in my chair.
Yeah, cards fabulous. It's really potent. It sort of creates a secondary battlefield, sort of like how Shadow did in in Wrath Block. That undeath touch typically not being relevant because if they have Shadow, they can't be blocked or not blocked. But if you have a pinger, that's when things get really exciting. You can exile stuff from the main battlefield. That's let alone if you have something like a Bloodfire Dwarf in your graveyard and you're like, all right, kids, deal 1 damage to everything and exile everything. You're all done, idiots. So this card is super cool. Obviously, #on brand. This is high on the list as well. I really like this card quite a bit.
This card was sweet, and it's nice that sometimes when you're #on brand, and it's all the brand things that you love and enjoy and are known for, and it's there. It's the Aaron, it's the Campbell.
Yep.
It's terrific.
I mean, Patrick Sullivan has Burn, Caleb Shearer has Storm, Joe Lissette was Miracles for a long time. I'm very fortunate to sort of be associated with something really cool like that, where sort of, we're just something, we remind people of something and they want to let you know that, and that's great.
Ruben, what is your number 1?
My number 1 harkens back to some of the most beloved stories in the history of Magic the Gathering. This is a thing that people have been asking for a long decade. Since they came out with Planeswalkers, they've wanted this character on a Planeswalker, and we haven't gotten it yet. Before there was Kamigawa, before there was Theros, before there was Ravnica, before there was Innistrad, there was Mishra, and there was Urza in the Brothers' War. And Urza Academy Headmaster is the first time that he's appeared on a Magic card. He's the first 5-color Planeswalker, a white pip, a blue pip, a black pip, a red pip, and a green pip. Legendary Planeswalker Urza, he's a mythic rare, comes into play with 4 loyalty, and his +1, his -1, and his -6 all say, head to AskUrza.com and click the corresponding button. And if you go to AskUrza.com, there's a randomized list that basically the computer program chooses from and gives you random +1s, -1s, and ultimates from various Planeswalkers throughout history. This is a really good exemplification of Urza. Obviously, an entire Urza, his entire person, is a pre-mending Planeswalker. If you need to know what that means, go see Magic Man Sam's channel, or someone else who does Vorthos stuff. But basically, this is sort of a powered-down version of Urza, because it's just his head sitting on a thing. And he's still super powerful and has access to 90 different types of spells. at his disposal, and it's great. The art by Therese Nielsen, obviously, super fantastic. Has a lot of sweet references in the art. There's a little monkey with the clanging cymbals. There's a reference to Urza's hot tub in the background. There's a flattened inner tube. There's a stress doll in the foreground that she actually bought. Therese Nielsen bought a stress doll and then like duct taped it together so that it would always be bugging out so that she could illustrate it correctly. But finally, we have Urza on a Planeswalker. Urza Academy Headmaster is my number one.
It's pretty fantastic. AskHerTheUrza.com. You go through it, and I have some programmer friends who are like, yeah, it's like one of these 6 different categories and 20 different abilities in each one and all this other stuff. And they can add things to it later, which I also think is amazing that they'll add all the new abilities.
I think that's the important part, is that this is not just like roll a d20 and you get some thing. This can be updated as more Planeswalkers come out.
Right. So this was my number 6. I love the idea of it. I'm a little wary because Urza's hot tub doesn't work anymore. Okay, that was a go to like wizards.com/hot tub or something, and that doesn't work anymore. So I hope they don't let go of AskUrza.com, which currently goes to one of Wizards' web pages. 5 or 6 years from now, they're like, whatever, they do a new site revamp, and then Ask Urza gets broken. But Urza Academy Headmaster himself is just terrific, and the idea that his head's still out there. And it's still powerful. And she's hidden all the pieces. Like, she's hidden a bunch of pieces of the legacy weapon, like Squeeze Toy is in there, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely terrific. And if you're going to make an unwalker, this is the one you start with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, we're going to move on here to my number 1, which has to be, via, elimination, Aaron's number 3. And, it's one thing where if you call a card of the year, you kind of feel like it would be the best in the set. Just throwing that out there. So, Spike Tournament Grinder is my number 1. It is a 2 black Phyrexian mana and 2 generic mana for a 1/1 rare legendary human gamer. And of course, black Phyrexian mana can be paid with either black mana or 2 life. 4 black Phyrexian mana, choose a card you own from outside the game that has been banned or restricted in a constructed format. Reveal that card and put it into your hand. Where Wedge, very famously, at this point, paid some amount of mana or life, I can't recall, but did get Shahrazad from out of nowhere to play the sub game and blow the minds of everyone involved. The fact that, first of all, the main character on this is female. Secondly, created an entire new brand of merchandise that they're able to take and run with, which took a little prodding, but it's okay. They got there. The card in of itself completes a cycle from Timmy and Johnny, and now we have Spike.
Doesn't complete the cycle. It adds to the cycle.
It adds depending on what you want to think of as the main psychographics and all this other stuff. Should there be the Vorthos, comma, so on and so forth? Absolutely. There's more unsets coming. I can almost guarantee that at this point. But, Spike Tournament Grinder was terrific and beloved from the day it saw print and made that amazing moment in the pre-release. As you and I, Ruben, will make amazing moments in the Rivals Vixlock.
Absolutely. I mean, it was nominated for Coverage Moment of the Year in our Magic Mikesies, I believe. If it wasn't, then that was an oversight by the nomination committee. Take it up with the judges. But this is a great card. It does a lot to live up to Spike Tournament Grinder, the name, right? The Phyrexian Man is a home run because that is like the spikiest mechanic of all time. Getting the banned and restricted stuff was fabulous because that is exactly what Spikes try to do, is they try to break stuff. And so it led to all those discussions of how do you break the card that breaks things, right? What's the best combo to go get? What card do you go get with your Spike Tournament Grinder? In addition to the fact that it led to an entire line of merchandise. They got a couple of them wrong, I got to say. I think that they should have gone with Grow for green instead of Swole, right? Because that's a thing that I'm not going to wear a Swole shirt. Swole is what they went with in real life. That is a thing that they did. Hopefully they come out with more in the future and different names and different types of words on all those shirts. And then of course the Spike being a woman is a big deal because representation matters, of course. Spike being a not male name, unlike Timmy and Johnny, gave them a great opportunity to go forward with Spike. I've known a couple female Spikes in my day. There's a dealer at the MGM who's just this spitfire 70-year-old woman who's like my favorite human on the planet because she just doesn't take anything from anybody and will just like slap your hand if you put your hand too far across the table trying to grab chips. She's awesome, and her name's Spike. So that reminded me of her. Yeah,
That's
and
amazing.
I think that this the hoodie is exactly the archetype, right? Where the Magic related T-shirt is actually kind of off-brand for a tournament grinder. Typically, it's like an Avenged Sevenfold T-shirt, right?
Exactly.
Or like something that they found at in their mom's basement. But that's where I get all my clothes from. But yeah, this card is just a home run on every level. One card of the year on the premier Magic the Gathering awards show, the Magic Mikesies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was my number 3. I remember the day that this.
Sorry, my number 7. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this was a very inspirational card. I remember my feed just sort of lit up when the card got spoiled, and my friend Emma Handy changed her Twitter name to Emma Handy Tournament Grinder for a brief period. I love the response. Like when people asked Wizards, like, so where can we get these shirts? And God bless Wizards. Do you guys just not like money? They were like, we didn't really have a plan for that. And it's like. Like, are you serious? And like, God bless them. They needed like 48 to 72 hours to, come up with this shirt line because, after I think the number 1 reaction was to Spike being female, the number 2 reaction was where can I get that T-shirt? Right. And so God bless them for capitalizing on that. And now I got the Doom shirt for Christmas, which I don't have on me. But yeah, this card was great. People were waiting to see what was going to happen next. We had Johnny, we had Timmy, and the twist of sort of Spike being female is awesome. And it's something I think a lot of women wanted to see, a lot of women related to. Obviously there are still sort of those stereotypes that women don't play or women aren't very good. And a lot of the scarier players I know are women. I remember when Gabby Sparks was this wee little thing going to PTQs and crushing them. And now she's sort of, ubiquitous and known and loved and everything. But it's like, there are a lot of women out there that are very scary good at this game. And it was nice to see them get a shout out in this card because we're out there and we've been there and this card shows it.
And also, it created it's a very amazing story card. It's one of those cards that creates these moments. Like there was in Cool Stuff Games, somebody was playing with Spike tournament card and said like, "I'll pay 8 life, just a second." Got up, bought a copy of Umezawa's Jitte, sat down, put in hand, paid mana, blah, 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 did all the things because that's the type of stuff that this kind of card creates. Is these crazy over the top moments, and I think that is the epitome of what the unsets are about.
I was really hoping to get Spike and Eager Beaver in my pre-release deck because Eager Beaver, illustrated by Andrea Radek, is a creature that untaps itself, and so I could go get Splinter Twin and Twin Beaver people, which would be amazing. But yeah, there's so many cool things to do with this card. Obviously, the Voltaic Key Time Vault combo is the one that most people reference. But there's just so much cool stuff. It leads to all those kind of discussions of what are you going to go get with Spike Tournament Grinder? How are you going to use this card to its fullest effect? And there are so many good things to say about it. And I can't think of anything bad to say about it. It's just a fabulous card.
And that was our top 10 cards in Unstable. You'll see them on the screen right now for review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate for CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. I think we're undone.
Wow. We'll move here to our final slide. So I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, and you guys for watching, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Visit our website at MagicMikesPodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv/MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, on Reddit at Reddit.com/r/MagicMikes, and on Facebook at Facebook.com/MagicMikes. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week for another top 10 episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.